If you don't go into pastoring, can you still be a minister? That's one of the questions our guest today wrestled with in his educational journey. And God led him to find ministry in the field of STEM and to help others to move into that area. If you are wrestling right now, trying to figure out what is my thing, this episode is for you. And then if you found your thing and you want to know how to do more of it and make a greater impact, this is for you. Let's go.
Welcome to the Monetize Your Ministry podcast.
And you get a chance to interact with them. To me, that's full-time ministry.
Really die happy because tackle diabetes is like a feed. It brings in itself and then it opens.
I want to provide content and things that are going to help change lives, and I simultaneously want to receive a blessing from that.
Now here's your host, Kymone Hinds.
All right, welcome back. Monetize Your Ministry podcast. If you're new to the party, you know what to do. Subscribe to the podcast. You're watching this on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube. And if you're listening on a podcasting platform, please go ahead and make sure you hit that subscribe button and leave us a rating and a review. Listen, on this podcast, we seek to do a few things. One of those things is to help you figure out what is your unique ministry. What's the thing that God has designed you and wired you to do best to serve others? And no, that may not always be within the confines of a church or a religious institution. Many times, and in fact, most times, it is outside in the world. And so that's why I'm excited to have today's guest. He is a young man, a gentleman that I've met years ago, right, in a different part of my journey, and just always admired his drive and his willingness to serve. And I just want to introduce to some and present to others, Dr. Nehemiah Mabry. Nehemiah, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Listen, man, this is a privilege, an honor. Come on. Thank you for having me on here. Listen, anytime you call me, I know not only will it be an opportunity to minister and to speak life, but it's something creative as well. So I want to let you know that you've always inspired me, and I've seen a lot of things you've done throughout your journey. And so I'm just blessed to be here on the podcast.
Man, I'm excited, man. I'm just telling you, this is going to be good. So those of you who you're watching this, go ahead and tag someone, send them the message, tell them they need to check this out live, or if you're watching this on the replay, just go ahead and share this with someone, because this is going to inspire someone, because Nehemiah's story is one that I'm sure you can relate to in some way, in some shape, and it will help you in your own journey. So let me give a little bit of introduction, because Nehemiah, I need folks to understand who is on the podcast today. This gentleman is a distinguished engineer, educator, and entrepreneur based in Raleigh, North Carolina, with a rich technical background spanning over 15 years. Hear this: as a NASA researcher, bridge design engineer, and adjunct professor, Dr. Mabry brings a wealth of expertise to any stage that he's on. And he is the CEO and founder of STEM Media, a renowned educational, tech, and digital media company. And that media company has gained awards and recognition all across the United States and beyond. So Nehemiah, man, this is a lot that you've done. And folks may not know how young you are, but you've done a lot in your time. So for people who know you and people who may not know you, I gave that introduction, but what's something about you, Nehemiah Mabry, that people would be surprised to learn?
Man, we get that question when we are little that we've all heard and we all may have asked, and that is what you want to be when you grow up. You know what I mean? And that's where, as a young child, it's like anything is possible, right? At least that's how it should be when you're a young child. And I remember one time, not even one time, but a good span of my childhood, I used to want to be an ice cream truck driver.
Okay.
I don't know if they still do that today, but the truck drive around the neighborhood, you hear the music playing. For whatever reason, when I was a kid, a few things matched the joy when I heard man, let me tell you, running in the house trying to get some money so I can buy me a little push pop or whatever case may be. And I thought for a good span of my childhood that would have been that was the best career a person could have. And so I was just thinking about how it would be possible to not only give treats and be that person that bring joy, but to connect with kids in the neighborhood and kind of be everybody's favorite person. And so since this is talking about monetizing your ministry, I did not go that route. However, I assure you that was something I definitely wanted to do at one point as I grew up and got asked that infamous question of what do I want to be, for sure.
Well, listen, let's say it this way: you haven't done that yet, right? Like,
Yeah. Hey,
you
listen,
still
it's
got some
still
time,
possible,
right?
you
Now,
know.
and I'll just tell you, those ice cream trucks are still around. I'm surprised you
Okay.
haven't heard them. You have three young ones, three young daughters.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised you haven't heard them. I'm surprised they haven't
I
heard it,
I
because
mean,
kids
they
have
would hear it
ears
before
to
I
hear
would.
those better than adults.
Yes. Yes. They would hear it
Yeah,
better than I would, for sure. But I guess the time is coming, right? Maybe I'll be driving it by the time I hear.
absolutely. Now it's interesting. So Nehemiah, you went to a university called Oakwood University.
Yeah.
My three children are there now. And in reading your bio, you said you felt a call to ministry at a certain point,
Yeah.
pastoring. In that season, you felt like maybe God's directing you in different areas. So let's kind of take people back
Yeah.
in your educational journey. When you first entered to college, what major did you choose? And kind of talk to us about just your college development, because I think what I want you to understand, if you're watching or listening to this, there's a way we're shaped to figure out what our ministry is, and I want to just kind of understand your journey and how you figured some of this out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the things that I had as a natural, I don't know if it was natural, I don't know how you would define it, but I saw early on was just my ability to stand in front of people and speak publicly. Right. That was a visible gift that I had. One that my mom always encouraged. People in my community always, put me up front during youth programs. But in addition to that, something that was less visible, Kymone, was my ability to understand math and science pretty good. Like I would really like challenge myself to do tests in high school and use almost little to no like scrap paper sometimes when they would let you do it for whatever
You one of those.
math.
I could kindred spirit. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was me, man. So I as I learned about that as well as some of my creative interests, I went into school studying to be an engineer. Like that was my original game plan. Now at Oakwood University, as you mentioned, it doesn't have a in-house engineering program. So what you do is you enroll in what they call a dual degree program with the University of Alabama in Huntsville. And so I went in intending to get an applied mathematics degree from Oakwood, but then also transfer to UAH, as we call it, to get a civil engineering degree. So that was my major. But again, because everybody saw that I could speak, being in this faith community that Oakwood is a part of, the automatic thing that people point you towards is, oh, you're going to be a preacher. You know what I mean? Or you're going to be a pastor, rather. You're going to go in, you're going to lead a church. That's going to be your vocational ministry. I see it on you now. And the fact of the matter is they just weren't standing over my shoulder when I was doing my math test, or they weren't seeing me kind of study science or read up on all the facts, right, in my almanac. Like they didn't really see that part. They just saw the visible part. And so that being said, I did kind of get swayed to try to be a theology minor too. I'm going to put that on there. I was like, I'm going to take some theology classes along with my applied mathematics coursework in eventual engineering. So I knew I was going to do engineering, but I also tried to augment it because I heard it so much. Listen, let me get a little bit of theology classes here on the side as well. So that's what I went to school in.
So did you get the minor?
I didn't complete the minor, but I took classes that I wouldn't have normally taken without.
I was going to say, man, if you do it applied mathematics, you do engineering. I don't know if you got a whole lot of time to finish that whole. Yeah.
That's exactly what happened, because it ended up taking me 5 years to get applied math and engineering, just to get those two dual degrees. And so I really didn't want to stay in school longer than 5 years. And so I just kind of like stopped taking the religion classes, even though I did take more than I would have normally had to take had I not at least attempted the minor.
Yeah. This is a good conversation. By the way, I was a math major in high school. Like the school I went to was kind of specializing in math. Then I did a field called actuarial science. And one of the things I learned is that once you get higher with math, there are less numbers and a lot more symbols, right? So,
that's true.
So that thing it's not as, I'll just count. It's not just counting. It's like a whole lot of symbols.
It's a whole lot, man. Greek letters when you start getting more into engineering too. Greek letters, uppercase, lowercase Greek letters, the whole nine.
Yeah. A whole lot of formulas, symbols, all that stuff. So let's talk about this then. As someone going through with it, almost from a lot of people, we don't see those things together, right?
Yeah.
You're very well with speaking, standing in front of people, and you have a good grasp of engineering and math and the sciences. Was there any like Like, did you feel any tension with both of those skills that you had?
I did. I felt a lot of tension early on, and in hindsight, it's kind of like, why did I feel tension? But to be honest with you, going through it in real time, it was like, how in the world? Where does like the ability to like problem size physics, my favorite class in high school, right? How does that fit with religion and theology and Bible studies and things like that? I really didn't see it, and so honestly, because of the tension, certain people who saw one side of my gifts saying I'm gonna do this, and then me also having like a heart for this side, right? The STEM fields. Because of that tension, I actually started intentionally trying to find overlaps, right? Like, where do they connect? I remember having a pastor who was sort of a mentor at the time, Pastor Kymone Hinds, who was also very encouraging in ministry, gave me a book on like, the science of God and like the physics in the Bible. And I like, those are the types of things I started gravitating towards, because in my mind, I was like, maybe there's some overlap, in which there definitely is, but I thought it was more of an explicit, like teaching type of overlap that I need to find, right? I need to find maybe a subset of sermons that maybe I just be the guy that always preaches this type of sermon, right? Like I didn't really know how it would make sense, but the fact of the matter, to answer your question, it just didn't seem naturally compatible early on.
Yeah, I think people, I mean, everyone is meaning well. We want to figure out, this person seems like they have a passion to serve God. They love him. They have a passion for people. And for many of us, that's the field that we think in is preaching. It's inside of the church. It's things that, directly affect the week to week running of a religious congregation and institution. But now, as we're seeing with your story, there's so many more possibilities, and I want us to explore those a little bit with your story. So you graduate college, and kind of talk to us about what's next in your journey with career, and then we'll talk about how do you start tying that back to how you start seeing ministry in light of that. But talk about your career now.
Well, honestly, I got to go back a little bit. Come on, like, because it was really like my sophomore year in college where I started to feel like, okay, God is calling me to the ministry, because I thought ministry was synonymous with being a pastor, as you just said, but I started to feel this tug. I remember at a student revival, getting baptized, whole nine, right, and feeling called. And so really what began sort of my second year in college was like this mental, like exploratory kind of period in my field where I was sure God called me to ministry, but at the same time, whenever I was like, all right, God, I'm about to go change my major to fully theology, religion theology, he was like, no, don't do that. Like, that's kind of the word that would come back to me. I'm like, all right, God, I thought you called me to the ministry. Like, isn't that what you just said to me? He was like, I did. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me go change my major tomorrow. And he's like, no, I didn't tell you to change your major. But God, I thought you called me to ministry. And he's like, I did. And so it was early, like, I wouldn't say early, but midway through my college experience that I began to realize God did call me to ministry, but it's just in another mission field. And so that was sort of the catapult for me to start saying, all right, what other ways does God want me to be a minister in this field of engineering, right? And STEM as an acronym wasn't really used much. And I remember I went on Google one time and it said Engineering Ministries. I just looked up Engineering Ministries. And sure enough, I found this organization based in Colorado. I know we did some collaboration in Colorado, but I went out to Colorado the year after I graduated college. So coming back to where you just asked, my first summer after college, I did an internship for an organization called Engineering Ministries International. And the way that this one was set up was that engineers from various parts of the country got together and they went overseas. And, a lot of mission trips, you're building houses and things like that. Well, this one was unique, Kymone, because we weren't necessarily building things physically. We were doing engineering. Like, we literally went and consulted with schools that needed to renovate their school, and because they had more capacity. And then we start doing like the electrical design, the structural design, the architect, like the legit same engineering work that you do as an engineer here. But the intention was to help these, and they were faith-based organizations that we were serving and basically offering our engineering skill set to, right? And so that was the first summer. I loved it, man. It was so great. It was the first time I saw, okay, man, I actually am doing engineering as a minister. But even then, I had more that I feel like God was showing me, right? Like, he was like, all right, there are more. I actually volunteered to go back with them 2-3 years later all while I'm still like getting my master's in civil engineering at the University of Alabama, Huntsville. After I got my master's, the Lord opened up a way for me to get a PhD partially paid for it. Wow. So that's how I got all the way to North Carolina. So this whole time, right, I'm like going further down. Like a PhD is deep, it's narrow, right? I'm going deeper and deeper and deeper into the field of engineering, learning and studying stuff that honestly, a person, if they're not meant to do it, they probably shouldn't go that far into the field, right? But at the same time, my passion and my conviction just got clearer and clearer that God wanted to use me as a minister somehow in this field of engineering, in the STEM, right? This world of STEM. And so that was really like how it was until I got to North Carolina, my first year at North Carolina State University. And by the time I had gotten here, I just came out of this Oakwood environment. And for those who are familiar with, you know what I'm talking about. For those who not, Oakwood is a place where even outside of the academics, a lot of your gifts are cultivated. I was a part of a drama ministry.
I remember that.
My entire time at Oakwood, right? And we just would get on stage and go to churches and after school programs and a lot of organizations and put on like plays and skits that always had inspirational messages. So I had that improv in me, right? Oakwood is a very musical school. I sang in musical groups. I played the bass guitar, still play the bass guitar. I had the ability to make like soundtracks. And so the opportunity came here at North Carolina State University, my first year, where and this is how the story goes. It really started my company, Kymone. A campaign was launched by President Obama, and he had a council on jobs and competitiveness, and it was called Engineering Stay With It. And the whole point of that campaign by the president was to encourage students to stay with engineering, why engineering is so important. And they wanted to put together this big inspirational kind of motivational experience for all the engineering students across the country. And what they did, Kymone, they said, we're going to challenge someone to make a creative video who was in engineering about why you chose engineering, what you're doing to stay with it. We want to inspire. And the most inspiring video is going to win the national grand prize. This is my first year. I said, oh man, this is like the perfect combination of like,
oh my gosh,
everything I've been doing. I'm like, I'm about to come up with a skit. I'm about to get some music in the background. I know engineering, so they're about to see some real engineering formulas and all that in it. And what I made in my mind was the Super Bowl commercial, the Nike commercial, the Gatorade commercial for engineering. Come on, it's on YouTube to this day.
I gotta share that.
Yeah, man. And long story short, I won the national grand prize for that, and that was awarded a laptop. A state-of-the-art laptop at the time by Intel, because they were one of the sponsors. It was featured on MTV, right? An engineering video was on MTV. And then that just really opened up the doors. I got like bookstore credit and stuff like that. And that was really the first, I think, manifestation of how I saw God wanted to use me as an engineer to not only do things on the technical side, but on the creative side that I developed, as well as inspirationally empowering people. And so that was it, man. And from there,
we gotta unpack this.
It started from there.
We gotta unpack this now. So you could have said, man, I've been on MTV. That would have been like what people don't know, man. I've been on MTV, right? Like that's cool enough. I just want to define some stuff for people who may not know, and then this part of the story, we gotta unpack this. Okay, so I don't want to assume everyone knows what STEM means. So just share with us what STEM means.
For sure. So STEM is an acronym. STEM, it stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And, earlier on in my career, that acronym wasn't as, everywhere ubiquitous as it is now. But it wasn't until later on in my career that I realized they had this acronym out that began to use more and more in academic circles that really encapsulated all that I was interested as it relates to technical things, right? The science, the math, the engineering, like all that. I'm like, okay, this is the mission field, if you will, that God has called me to.
I love it. And now, engineering is broad. You mentioned it, but talk a little bit. And the reason I'm saying this is, especially for the people who watch this podcast, they may have a child, they may be someone who's interested. Talk a little bit about what field of engineering you particularly are in. And what it does. Just give us a short form of what that field of engineering is.
So I am a structural engineer, and structural engineering is sort of a subset or related to civil engineering. has to do with the infrastructure that we all kind of live and use on a daily basis. So your roads, your bridges, your buildings, right? Your tunnels, your towers, things that need to stand up, carry weight, and continue to function without falling down. That's what we're all about in my particular field of engineering. Engineering as a whole, though, is we're problem solvers. We use math and science to solve these particular problems.
I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Look, my hat's off to you guys, and I appreciate what you guys do, because when you're driving over something, you're like, man, is this thing gonna hold, right? Like you see all these big trucks, but it's because of the work that you guys, people in your field, are doing. Now, it's so interesting, right? I think, and this is a recurring theme. So if you watch this podcast, you've heard this before. The fact that your experiences we have in life, and we think, oh, what is that for? Like, no, there's no big deal in this, or why did I do this? And your story of that video, right? That video competition kind of just illustrates that there's no wasted experiences, right? There are no wasted things that we've been exposed to, and opportunities we take, even for ministry, that they help to shape us. And there comes a time where you go, aha moment of, that's what that was for, right?
Yes, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, I remember getting a call from MTV before they like voted the winner, like narrowed it down to like 10 finalists. And the guy on the other line was like, hey, we just want to make sure, you're an actual engineering student that did this, because every single other video we got was just somebody in a talking head standing in front of a camera and talking. Like every single one. It was like, yours is the only video that had a storyline. You put music in the background. Is that music? Do you have rights to that music? And I'm like, yeah, it actually was a track from like when my friends and I back in high school used to make rap songs. Like we make tracks. So it was one of those in the background. Yes, from high school, man. Shout out to Game Face. That was the name of our crew, right? So that, again, being able to kind of come up with a storyline from my days in M. Kanania, that was the name of the drama group back at Oakwood. And so like they were really trying to vet, even make sure that as an engineering student, I wasn't like, or as a submitter, I wasn't like somebody from communications or something that somehow trying to act like I was an engineering student.
A music major or something.
Yeah. It was pretty cool though. Yeah.
All right. So you said that kind of almost gave you the inspiration to say, okay, let me look at in STEM media, right? That's where the birth of that. Kind of talk about like, why you decided to go further with it rather than just, okay, I did this.
Yeah. And I think this is good because we can get to the monetization part of everything, right? Because this is when I started to realize, okay, God gave me something special, right? Like I have a combination, and that's part of the message I like to share with other people. Like there's a unique combinations of gifts and talents and values that we all have, right? That is something the world is waiting for, that we're supposed to provide. And so that's where I first was able to see, okay, I was able to blend ministry and engineering and STEM in the past, but this is what mine is supposed to look like, right? My ministry is supposed to look like. And so people started asking like, hey, can you help us do something like this for our after school program? Can you help us do this for my classroom? And I started like getting a lot of requests. How much you charge, right? I don't know. As a matter of fact, I remember meeting the dean of the university. This is a major school, tier 1 university in North Carolina. The dean, shout out to Dean Louis. He's telling people, yo, he has a business. Go check out his business. He just won a grand prize. And I didn't have a business for real at that time, So I was like, man, I guess I got to get a business. The dean is telling everybody, I got a business. Let me figure this out. So I incorporate Secretary of State, get all that together, all the paperwork together, an accountant, all that kind of stuff, bank accounts. And people are like, how much you charge? I'm like, $300, right? just whatever, right? I don't really know what I charge, but people are asking me to do this same type of like presentations and productions for their organizations. But I was still an engineer full time. And so after I graduated my PhD, I worked full time. My 9 to 5 at the time was a bridge design engineer here in North Carolina. While, nights, weekends, and whole nine, I was still sort of taking on projects because at the time I was, we were making money, but it wasn't enough to support a family, right? It wasn't enough to be sustainable, but I was a business, right? The business existed. There were tax returns. There was revenue coming in sort of simultaneously. It was more of a side hustle at the time, though.
Wow. So here it is. Somebody almost prophesied your business, man. This guy got a business, right? And people started asking you, what do you charge? Talk about in the beginning, did you have any hangups even charging for it? Because it sounded like you really enjoy doing this. Did you have any internal hangups of giving numbers and charging?
Ooh.
How did you overcome it? And like, how are your mindset even on pricing now?
All right. I'm so glad you asked that question, because this is a core thing just on your platform, Monetize Your Ministry. Yeah. We struggle with asking for money.
That's right.
And Lord knows I struggle and still struggle to a certain extent when it comes to the amounts that I ask for, right? Even today at times. But the fact of the matter is, I had to realize that here's the first thing I realized, that if I don't charge them something, then they're immediately going to see the value of what I have to provide lower than what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I just said, and our first paid video was for this after school program, downtown Raleigh. I remember I was asked how much I charged. I think I said $300 or something like that, which is incredibly low for what I was trying to provide for a video. If I would have just said I'll do it for free, because they are an organization that was really trying to get their image right and trying to do good, they would have already discounted what I could provide. Okay, right. Well, maybe what you're gonna give us isn't gonna be all the good. They probably would have let me do it, Kymone, but like they probably in the back of their mind be like, hey, if this don't work out, we'll go pay somebody else.
Yeah.
To actually do what we need to do. So first of all, I had to realize that like I am actually not just shortchanging myself, I'm shortchanging them, right? I'm messing up them if I don't attach some sort of value to the things that I'm doing. And so that was one of the first things that helped me overcome it, right? The second thing is I started to realize that I am unable to do a certain amount of work all by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't get to a place where I start charging, I'm going to burn myself out. And on the other end, I'll never have room to bring somebody else in and be fair to them.
Wow.
And so I started to realize I got to actually charge so that if I need help with anything, whether it's the editing, whether it's the post-production, shooting, the filming, whatever the case may be, the writing, I have to charge so that I can be fair to other people that I might need to ask, right? If I want to somehow, foolishly say I'll work for free, what right do I think I have to say that on behalf of the people that I'm gonna need to help me or whatever else I'm gonna need to purchase to get it done? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nehemiah, go ahead.
You said something really important there that I hope people who are watching this and listening to this get. Our guest is Dr. Nehemiah Mabry from STEM Media. Mm-hmm. And you just said, if I don't charge, how am I going to be able to pay the people that I want to bring on to work for me? People who have skills, who have abilities that now can become part of my team. And I think we miss that part of it. We keep thinking, well, it's about me. It's about me. No, It's not just about you. If you're building any sort of business, it's gonna have to turn into a team, other people involved. And if you're gonna be fair to them, part of the way this works is you got to be able to pay them. And where does that money come from? It can't come from your own pocket, right? It can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm glad you called that out too, because I probably should have crystallized that early on, because one of the things we feel is that if we ask people for a certain amount of money, or if we actually charge them, growing up in the church, as I have, a lot of times cultivating our gifts in the church, sometimes we feel this undue sense of obligation to give it away for free, which is so erroneous, right? But if you think about it, you really are being more selfish if you continue to give away for free, because now people in the future who need to be blessed by your ministry has less of a chance to do so, because you haven't created any way to sustain that ministry to still be in existence to bless them in the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, that's a mic drop moment right there. Listen, somebody's wrestling. I mean, Nehemiah, I cannot tell you, doing this podcast, going on the road, talking to people, pricing is one of the biggest hangups people have. And you just said it. You're actually killing the ministry if you don't charge. You're killing that thing. It's not going to survive if there's no steady stream of income.
Or if you having a loss, if you're doing it all at a loss all the time, you know what I mean? Like if you don't want that to be the rule. Okay, if God somehow one day tells you and really impresses your heart to do something or whatever, that's different. We didn't talk about that. But if your motto is causing you to be in the negative every time you perform your service, come on, man. You're not honoring God by that. You are actually stop. And I say this to somebody who's on my team now. So the Lord has blessed us to be able to have a team, and there's a producer who's on my team now, works with me full time. I often say to her, like, there is somebody in the future that needs to work here. We don't know who it is, right?
Yeah.
But we need to be able to exist in the future so that person who's called to work here can also have a job here. And so that requires us to do everything that we currently do at a profit so that we don't go bankrupt before that person in the future who's been ordained to come and cross paths with us has that opportunity. You know what I mean? And that's really some of the things that has helped me. And I know there are other mindsets. You have several guests. Shout out to the people that's been on the podcast who helped talk through this. But for me, what helped me to kind of get over some of that trepidation was realizing that I am actually being a bad steward. I'm being a bad steward if I'm just thinking, oh, don't worry about it, I just do this for free or whatever. No, man, like God didn't give this to me for it just to last until I get tired, or until my other stream of income run out. He wants it to last beyond that. This thing is supposed to be a tree planted by the river that bears fruit for other people in the future. And so I got to make sure these roots are deep.
I love it, man. I love it, though. Listen, I'm gonna clip this, I'm gonna put this somewhere because somebody's needing to hear this with their hangups about pricing, because we all have a lot of bad theology and misquoting and just good intention things that probably are not serving us anymore. So I'm glad you're sharing that. So STEM media, let's talk about that. Like, and I'm gonna tell you why I'm asking you this. I had a workshop this weekend. I'm presenting this workshop, and I asked, "Who is your business for?" And someone with just great intention says, "Everyone." And I'm like, "No, that's not the right answer." Like, I don't know what your right answer is, but I know that's the wrong answer. So tell us, who is STEM media for? And how did you go about the process of figuring out who this is for and who are we serving and who are we targeting with this?
For sure. So I answered the first question. So STEM media helps educational institutions and companies elevate and empower young professionals in STEM, predominantly Black and Hispanic, those who are underrepresented, and able to develop personally, professionally, and technically in their career. That's what STEM media does. That's listen, our audience. I
love that pitch. I love that you practice that. You didn't just make that up on the spot when I asked you that. That's something. You got that. Wake you up 3 o'clock in the morning. You got that.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Yeah. But developing it or getting clarity on that is a process. I'll be honest with you, because here's the other thing people struggle with. Sometimes people think if they're specific, then they're like limiting themselves. But really the inverse is true. The broader you are, the less people know where to place you or even know what to go to you for. And so that being said, over time, I began to realize that we had a special, the creative ideas I had and the things that we were most effective in all sort of resonated with young professionals. And by young professionals, I mean people who are late high school to within their first 5 years of their career. So people who are still in the process of saying, hey, STEM is for me. I'm not sure what area of STEM is for me, but this is for me, and I'm trying to figure it out. And then again, being more specific of who we serve, being those who are underrepresented. So the sensibilities, the cultural relevancy that I have as an African-American male, individuals on my team who also have, Latinx background and things of that nature. So that being said, there is a unique potency that our content and our programming has with this group. Now, does that mean that we never serve for the people outside a group? No, what actually happens is when people know who to come to you for and you do so well there, it naturally opens up other doors to expand and broaden. But that's the tip of our spear, right? And that comes from just, over time refining the messaging, but also taking note of what works the best and what doesn't work as well.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I think as I hear you talk about that, I think most of us may not know right in the beginning, who is this for? Who's my target? But we have to be willing to become more and more niche down, more and more targeted. Just seeing, okay, this is resonating with this. This is who I come alive the most when I'm serving, and who just vibes with what I'm bringing here. So I think that's not to put too much pressure on people in the beginning, man. You may not know, but move towards the direction of greater specificity.
And to that example, like I knew that STEM, like I told my story, science, technology, engineering, math was my area, but like you could serve kids, right? You can serve like adult, like it was really all people. So even now I still get requests to come and talk to second graders and things like that. And I may do it occasionally, but that's still not the target audience. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm not going to resonate as well as we do with our young professionals. And so that's a good example of how you may have an idea, but you still may not be able to define yet.
Yeah. So Nehemiah, I want to ask you, I want to go down two roads. Let me start with this one. You said we have team members. Now, you know, a lot of us, we're solopreneurs. We out here, we're cooking the food, we're putting it together, we're serving it, we're doing it all, right? We're doing it all. We're one man band, one woman band. Talk to us about leveling up and in that process of bringing on team members. How was that for you in building what you're building now?
Yeah. So one detail I hadn't shared yet was that about 3 years ago, I resigned from my full-time engineering job and went full-time into STEM media, right? So
say that part again. You said
I resigned from my full-time engineering job, and then went full-time into STEM media.
There. Like your full-time engineers, y'all do pretty well, right? You from your full-time job. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. The one of the figures fell off the first time I made the difference. But I'll say this. I had to realize that in order to scale up, you want to get to a place to where there are people who are able to do things better than you in certain areas, because at the end of the day, and it feels so cliche, and I hope people hear it. Maybe they need to hear it from multiple people, but like, if you're doing everything, the quality of product is only going to get but so far. Like it's just period. Like it may be good enough for you to make a decent amount of money, but like in my case, I use my case as an example. There's somebody who knows how to edit better than me. Like at the end of the day, I was editing my videos, but somebody knows how to edit videos better than me. There's somebody who knows how to find the right angle with the camera better than me, right? There are people who know how to color correct better than me. There are some musicians who are better than me. And so it really was a process of saying, all right, here's the philosophical side is, how can I get to a place to where I find somebody good enough for me to fire myself from that job, right? Fire myself from that job so they can do it with their full attention. And now I have more intention to focus on the things that I can do better, right, in the group. That's the philosophical part. But then we're talking about monetization part, the money part, right? How can I now start, going back to what we said earlier, pricing the services in a way to where there's enough margin to now pay for somebody else to come on board, or to at least get close to it, right? I may not instantly break a profit, but get close to it. And then when people see a higher quality of product, now it starts to justify those higher prices. And now I'm able to ask for more and open up more rings. So it's sort of like an incremental process. I know I need to do it philosophically because I'm just running out of bandwidth on my end. But then, all right, now I need to get our prices to a point, or at least our clientele to a point where they can pay, where it's more than just my hourly rate, so to speak.
Yeah. So Nehemiah, you almost said something that was like a huge thing. Like, by the way, I resigned my job, right? Man, talk about that the faith step in. Like, were you building a bridge all along? Like, kind of talk to us about that part of the journey.
Yeah, that was big. Kymone. I'm gonna be honest with you. And a lot of people know, and I knew I wanted to. Like, honestly, when I was still in school before I got married, I remember even telling my wife, like, hey, entrepreneurship it's down the road, it's coming. Like, I know I got this engineering degree and everything, but just give you a heads up at some point, like entrepreneurship is going to take a turn. So first of all, I think there was a very important step and practical step for me, being a person who was getting married and eventually married, to make sure that my partner, my spouse, was on board. First of all, right? Like, this wasn't just an independent decision and then saying, hey, surprise, I quit my job today and we finna just work it out, right? So I actually had her on board, and at least in spirit, years before it happened, a couple of years before it, years before that even took place. But now on the financial side, honestly, it was, you do want to make sure you know how much it takes to live. And then you want to make sure you understand where the basics are going to come from. Your standard of living, rarely, I don't know too many people whose standard of living stayed exactly the same the moment they quit their full-time gig and went to entrepreneurship. So we had to brace ourselves a little bit for the dip, right? We had to make sure, all right, we're gonna live here. This is how our rent gonna be covered. This is that, whatever the case may be. So we had to brace ourselves, and just being prepared for that ahead of time was good. And then I would say the other thing is that you want to at least know where your business is coming from. I mentioned clientele and stuff like that, right? And a very real question is, man, I know you got courses and content, all that coming out in the future one day, man. So we don't have to put it all in this, but sometimes you have to pivot, not necessarily your business model. Well, maybe your business model, but also like the market that you're pursuing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So case in point, if my clientele was always going to be after school programs, well, how many after school programs have budgets the size enough to really like get a retainer with a production company or to bring in programming at 5 figures, 4 figures a pop, right? Like how many of you are going to have that?
Yeah.
As much as you want to help them, that may not be a sustainable market for you to build your full-time scalable business on. Do you automatically kick that market to the side? Maybe not, but you do need to start thinking, where can I get sustainable budgets, or can I pursue clienteles that have budgets that allow me to charge the amount that I need, that will then allow me to scale and also pay people, including myself. And so for me, I had to start looking at, okay, a university has a bigger budget for these type of things than an after school program. You know what I'm saying? A corporation may have a little bit more of a ceiling or allow them a little bit more margin than a nonprofit organization. And so I had to start trying to kind of changing what I pursued or filled my pipeline with.
That's good.
You know what I mean? In order to be able to sustain the growth that was necessary to do this full time.
Man, Nehemiah, that's good, man. Because a lot of us, where you start doesn't mean you have to stay there in terms of who your clientele is. Now,
right? You
said it. You'll still take an appointment to go speak at a second grade class or whatever. It doesn't mean you cannot give back, but in the monetization part of it, you do have to be wise on who you're charging. That do they have the capacity to be able to pay what I need to charge to take care of what this business is all about?
Yes, that's a fact. That's a fact, man. And that's a very practical thing. And that's why I mentioned, I know this platform is going to be blessing so many people through that, because these are the sort of the practical things that sometimes the heart may be in the right place and you're in the right space in terms of what you called to do, but there could be a little bit of misalignment as it relates to your business model, and your strategy that's making it more difficult for you. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you this question then, because your model, you are working with organizations, not just individual, which is different, right? Like,
yes,
I create something, I go to a person, they buy it, but you're now having to go through a lot of levels of decision makers. What are some lessons and tips you would say to someone who is doing B2B business like you are doing, having to go to organizations? Like, talk to us about maybe some of the challenges and then some of the tips on how to do that well.
Yeah, no, great question, man. So B2B, business to business, different from business to consumer, right? Consumer can say, oh, I want it. Pull out their credit card, swipe it right now. That cash hits your account. B2B, at least from my experience, is longer sales cycles, right? So I may get introduced to you in January. More than likely, if I make a sale, I'm not gonna make a sale in a week and the money's not gonna be in my account like the next week. Sometimes it's a process of and this could be a whole masterclass, come on. But first of all, you need to even discover if the person you're talking to even has the authority to make the purchase. Right? They might not even have the thorough authority. And like most companies have people for you to meet with before you even get to the person that has the authority. Right. And so you're sort of like selling the person that you first talked to sometimes for an opportunity to talk to the next person who actually has the opportunity to say yes or no. You know what I mean? And so you want to prepare yourself for not like being unrealistic, like, oh, I'm about to get on this Zoom call with this person from XYZ company and they're going to say yes and they're going to wire me the money right. No, that's not necessarily going to be the case. So you got to know that, all right, after you have that meeting, the goal is to maybe get on the phone with whoever the next person is, or get a call with the next person with that first person now being your champion on your side. Like you want to be able to get them so that in the next meeting, they're like, yeah, like he was telling me, yeah, you know, they're almost like a part of your sales team right now. So you want to kind of realize that that's really the goal. I think the second thing is you do want to identify as much as possible. It's not easy, but it takes studying your market. What are the actual line items that exist in the budget of the business that you're trying to sell to? And where does your product or service fall within their budget? Because 9 times out of 10, they have to submit a budget as an organization at the beginning of the year, and they have this much for programming, this much for curriculum, this much for marketing, whatever the case may be. And so if I get on there and I'm not like speaking toward any of those things, and they have no idea where my product or service falls, I'm gonna have a harder time as opposed to getting on there and saying, hey, this is a marketing opportunity, here's something for your curriculum and your programming, here is for your workshop. You know, I gotta almost like speak the language that already exists in the budgets. And that comes from being familiar with the market.
Yeah. Let's speak their language. Keep going. Anything else you got for us?
Oh, yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, no, for sure. So yeah, you brace yourself for a longer sales cycle. Make sure you understand the budget that exists. And then on top of that, you do got to understand that there is sort of there's a value in the larger the organizations, the more conservative they are. Like they're more risk averse, so to speak. And so part of your pitch is almost trying to remove any of the hesitancy they may have or the risk they may see. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're able to show them that you've worked with other comparable organizations in a successful manner, that sort of removes some of the trepidation of saying, all right, well, we're not the first one to try out, you know, you all services. I see Discovery I see PBS has hired y'all to do multiple things. You're like, I see you've worked with these people. So it's not always just, some people think it's like being boastful and being proud. Look at me, I work for PBS, Wired Magazine. No. I'm actually helping to tear down some of the barriers that will, you know, hinder the next client from saying yes. So I'm removing some of that risk. The other thing is, you know, you may want to look at ways, okay, how can we do sort of a trial or maybe do some sort of like initial period that allows you to sort of get an experience first and up front to see that it's worth your time and it brings value, and then come back with sort of your larger acts. Some people call it like a, I can't even call it, almost like a trip sale, your first sale, like a lower tier kind of sale. Tripwire, right? Like some sort of way that you can like get them to purchase something that's not as your biggest package, but allows them to at least gain a little confidence and work with them. You get in their vendor system, right? A lot of companies have vendor systems. So now they know, okay, we already straight on the direct deposit and everything. We pay for this $1,000 product. Now you can come back and say, here's the larger offer that I really wanted to sell all along, right? So you want to kind of like remove, like I said, that's my third thing. Try to make the investment in your product or your service or what you're trying to sell as minimize the risk as much as possible from their perspective, so that they're more likely to give you a shot.
Man, this is so good. Nehemiah, man, we could do a whole episode on this because a lot of people we need to be working with business to business, and we don't know how to get in the door. We don't know when we get in the door what to do. Like, here's a simple question. When they ask you for a proposal, do you just put your numbers right there on the proposal? What's your practice? What do you recognized?
Oh man, so I've made a lot of mistakes in this regard, but I'll say you probably shouldn't even send a proposal until you even know what they want for real. Like here's one of my things. I actually, when I have a call or if say they want a proposal, I'll try to ask so many questions to the point that they practically write the proposal for me and their answers to my question. Okay, are you typically trying to do something for, you know, your new hires, the people who are just there? All right, what are they typically struggling with? Okay, so that typically allows you, if they are able to conquer this, that will enable your organization to do what? Oh, okay, this right here. All right, I understand, right? So you start to get a lot of like the value proposition directly from the words that they give you, and you want to put that in your proposal. You know what I mean? And then when it comes to the numbers, man, one of the things I think I recommend is ask them, do they have a budget? Just say, do you have a budget for workshops?
And if they say
not every time,
they say right.
Yeah. And then they say, all right, is this something you all do quarterly? And, you know, is this something that you all do every month? What do you typically allocate for your workshop presenters,
I
right?
got you. Yeah.
And so then they not every time, but sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, we normally do 1,500, 2,000 for our workshop presenters, and we try to do one once a month or whatever. So now I got all of the value proposition. Listen, I don't know where this is gonna go, but I don't know this is not gonna undercut me. But anyway, I got the pricing right. So now my proposal is gonna simply say the value proposition I just got from their answers to my question, and I'm literally gonna charge exactly what they said. But here's the other thing, come on, and man, we really could do it. You want to charge what they said, have an option for what they said, but you also want to have an option higher, like the ideal higher option for them, right? So that they know that, all right, he has something that we can afford that we're typically doing, but then they also know, oh, there's more where that came from. There's even better value, right? And so that being said, they're more than likely not going to go for the higher option the first time because, again, they're kind of risk averse. But now you've already set yourself up for a higher price point sale down the road if you go in and knock that out of the park. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, man, y'all need to send this man an offering. Some of y'all gonna need to go try this, right? But I think there's just so many good points in this here that knowing how to ask the right questions. That's the key. Listen, if you're doing B2B, know how to ask the right. Even if you're doing B2C, one of the things that I believe is you bring the genius, right? You bring what I call the oil, the ministry, but your customers shape the product that you offer. And they shape it because you ask them the questions and they tell you, hey, this is how you shape this thing. And then when you bring it to them, they go, that's exactly what we were looking for. Yeah, you told us.
Exactly.
So know how to ask the right questions.
That's it, man. You ask the right questions. And I think one of the mistakes I used to make, and a lot of people do make, is think that the moment they get on the call, they got to do all the talking. We do this, hey, just listen, and just hoping that at some point they're going to say, oh, man, that's amazing. But that's actually a mistake. You actually want to get them to talk a lot because they basically telling you exactly what you need to propose, right? Obviously within your area of expertise, within your area of offering. But if you're doing all the talking, you probably aren't making any headway. You probably aren't if you're doing all the talking.
That's good. That's good, man. All right, listen, Nehemiah, I want you to do a few things before you get off. Talk to some young person or parent of a young person who might be thinking about STEM as a career. Just give them some words of advice, and then I have a couple more. So just talk to them. You use this opportunity to talk to them.
The world of science, technology, engineering, math or STEM is a toolbox that is incredibly useful in solving any problem you can think of. There isn't a single innovation, whether it be VR, whether it be, again, infrastructure, which I've worked in, education, automotive industry, any industry you can think of that has advanced, that you're really enthralled by, that you enjoy, I guarantee you has used some of the tools that exist in science, technology, engineering, and math. And so what I'm saying, if you are interested in creating the next big thing, not just going to the store and buying it, but creating the next big thing, then you should go into a field of STEM so that you can get some depth of knowledge in a certain area of expertise in a certain subject matter that you can then, as a person who has this expertise, as an expert, can add on business skills or connect with other people and really do some phenomenal things, both technically and even monetarily, for your career and your life and your family's life. And so that's what I want to say to the young person who's considering STEM. I guarantee you it is not a wasted skill that you would develop if you pursue anything in that area.
I love it. And then finally, kind of talk to us about STEM media, what you do, because someone at a company, an organization might be watching this podcast. And by the way, he's going to ask you those questions. So answer the man's question. But talk to them about what you do and how you can help them, and just, so that we can help you to get some connections as well off of this podcast.
Yeah, so as you said earlier in the introduction, STEM Media is an ed tech and digital media company that helps to develop, and we like to say it this way as well, diverse technical workforce, young professionals in STEM, right? We have three components of things that we offer. We have STEM Media Studios, so a full-blown production company. We've been able to produce shows for PBS Digital Studios, have done some things with Smithsonian, Wired, Magazine, Discovery, and things of that nature. So we produce a lot of the things that you see in a lot of the factual television, factual entertainment that you experience. We do that type of work. And so we can do it for your school, or we can do it for your organization, or we can do it for your network, right? I don't know whoever's watching this. So
man.
that's what STEM Media does.
Yeah.
That's Thinking Big. So that's STEM Media Studios. We have STEM Media Experiences. This is where workshops and lectures and public speaking come into play. I do keynote speeches for educators, entrepreneurs, leaders in the areas of STEM. We have other events that we put on that fall under this as well. We have an annual summit that we've done for about 4 years, the STEM Success Summit. And so these workshops and these programming all falls under STEM Media Experience. So the studio's production, the experience is sort of the live programming. And we also have a platform called the STEM Media Network. And so what you can think of the STEM Media Network is the master class of STEM that has a high amount of color, right? A lot of extra sauce and swag on it, right? So we have a platform right now where people are able to subscribe and have on-demand content to podcasts, online courses, videos on demand that all help elevate and empower your STEM success. And so that's what STEM Media is. We like to come and start off with maybe a workshop. We incorporate some of our videos in the workshop that we do. You can see some of the things that we produce. And then beyond that, we'd love to help you elevate your brand and your efforts as an organization.
I love it. Hey, man, listen, the website is on here, stemmedia.com, STEMEDIA.com for those who are listening. And to follow your business, STEM Media, STEMEDIA. And Nehemiah, we want to also give your Instagram. It's right here on the screen. Nehemiah Mabry, at Nehemiah Mabry. Listen, dude, you are always inspirational to me, man. Just kind of watching your journey from, I think I met you when you were finishing Oakwood, or you still at Oakwood.
Yeah. You had me do some skits, man. So you know about the improv and all that in my background, dude, too. So, yeah, man. Listen, the message for someone today is that God has put you where he's put you. He's allowed you to have experiences, and those experiences, nothing is wasted. And you may not know now why I'm doing what I'm doing. You may not know now what's the next step. But I just want to encourage someone: be faithful where you are, do the best you can with what you have to do. And one day, God is going to allow all of those things to come together into an amazing mix, so that you can reach more people, increase your income, impact, and increase your income. That's what I just want to encourage you to keep on doing.
Thank you for listening to the Monetize Your Ministry podcast with Kymone Hinds. For more information, visit our website at www.monetizeyourministrypodcast.com. That's www.monetizeyourministrypodcast.com. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Please share this episode with someone who needs it. Let's increase our income and impact.